Hello and welcome inside the Fox Weather's exclusive Risk of Weather Impact. It's the ROWI podcast, and today we're going to be breaking it all down. We're talking about NFL preseason football. We're going to have the MLB, IndyCar, and if you stick around to the end of the episode, we got another sport that you're going to be locked in on, as we do have a Risk of Weather Impact for it. So we're going to dive deep into all of this. If you're wondering, who is this guy yelling at me today? I've heard a Jersey accent, heard a Boston accent. Now I got this Floridian that's in the booth. It's me. It's Steve Bender. By the way, we got Ian Oliver. He's going to be joining us throughout the season, and BVD. All three of us is going to be coming at you every week to be talking about the hottest sports events, which ones are going to be impacted by the weather, and what does that mean for you if you're playing fantasy, if you're betting on the game, or if you're just a fan of it. Well, we got it all for you. Let's dive into, though, why this podcast is named the ROWI podcast. Remember, it's the Risk of Weather Impact. And so the goal is, again, to kind of give you an advantage if you're a fantasy player or if you're betting in on this, kind of adjust your expectation when you're watching the game. How is the weather going to impact it? We're going to be cutting through the noise, of course, because you're going to hear a lot. You're going to get a lot of information coming at you each and every week. And we're going to be talking about which weather impacts you actually have to adjust for, or which ones, you know what, it's not even a problem. These are pros that are heading onto the field, and they're going to do just fine. So when we look at this, it's a comprehensive weather analysis of all of this. We're going to be diving into, okay, this is a rain game. Everybody's going to be impacted by that, right? In some fashion, whether you're a skilled position guy, you're an O lineman, D lineman, you're a kicker, you're a punter, everybody's being impacted. Now, let's say it's a win event. Well, now we know, okay, QB, that's going to be an impact. Kickers, punters, that's going to be an impact. But for other guys, that's not a problem. Actually, that's free AC. The big guys loving it as they're sweating it out early in the season. Give me a little bit of air. So that's really what we want to do here, is dive into the different weather events and which key positions, which key players are going to be impacted. And guess what? We're going to be taking you to every different stadium around the country, because each stadium has a unique kind of a build to it. And that could create some type of impact for different players, right? So I want to jump into the scale. What you're going to see is spots like 0, low, medium, or high. You'll notice our first game that we got locked in for the weekend on Saturday, 7:30 p.m. We're heading down to Tampa, Florida. No surprise, we got some not only rain, we got some lightning in the forecast. So notice it is a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. So you got the heat of the entire day, allowing these storms to bubble up. And right at kickoff, lightning, if it's close enough to the stadium, usually within 8 miles, that means we're going to potentially get a delay. And so that would be a big concern. Growing up in Florida, I learned the 30 for 30 rule by the age of 5. So that means if you can count to 30 seconds, by the time you see that lightning and you hear that thunder, you're too close, which means you got to delay it 30 minutes. Same thing for the pros, right? They're going to be delaying these games for at least 30 minutes if the lightning is too close to the stadium. Notice that by the time we get to the second half of the game, that's when we're looking at potentially some rain, but no longer the thunderstorm activity. This is a ROWI, though, that is tricky, because I'll tell you this, we've been watching it all week long. We're getting real close to kickoff now, and so we're bringing out the high-res models. And why that's important is just now the timing of it really comes into play. And when you're looking at this was a medium to high type of ROWI. Because we've started to look at maybe the intensity of the rain throttling back to the second half of the game, you're looking at a medium category. But if the lightning and the thunderstorm set up because of an area that we're watching just over the Eastern Gulf kind of playing a big factor, this could be a waterlogged and sloppy game. And now I want to dive into which position is going to be impacted the most. We said, hey, in a rain game, everybody's being impacted because the footing is difficult at this point. But you got to think, okay, it's preseason. So if you're watching this, obviously, okay, which new acquisitions did we get? Do we have some rookies that we want to see some reps for? Well, if you're the Tennessee Titans, of course you do. You got the number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward. He's going to have his first in-game appearance for this. He's going to be underneath head coach Brian Callahan. And so really what you're trying to find out is, how is Cam Ward adapted to the NFL playbook? How is he what's his reps and his timing like with the first team? Now, of course, when you're in the preseason, especially the first game, they may not be playing for a long, extended amount of time. And when you're looking at a game like this with all that rain and thunderstorms, do you jeopardize your franchise quarterback to the elements. And I'm not just talking about the Tampa Bay's defense. I'm talking about the rain and the potential concerns you'd have with that. Now, the Bucs, they got several roster moves this offseason as well. We were just talking about their defense. They're going to be debuting some new starters, and that actually concerns LB, the linebacker Hassan Reddick. Remember, all last year there was that problem with, is he going to play for the Jets? Is he not? What's going to be happening? Well, he's an absolute stud, and he's going to be taken to the field in Tampa. Now, again, is that going to be for this game? We'll be watching that closely. We also do have wide receiver Chris Godwin. He's going to play in this game despite not practicing due to injury. Now, he suffered a season-ending injury last year to the Baltimore Ravens in Week 7. I think this is an interesting and a perfect one to over-index on. If you're thinking about Chris Godwin, he's not a big guy, but he's fast, he's agile, he's shifty, and you need good footing. The guy's coming off an injury. Do you jeopardize that in the first preseason game when this is getting wet and sloppy? I don't know. For me, I'm looking like I would sit Chris Godwin if I was coach, right? So you want to watch something like that. So that's a good example of what a decent weather impact could do, a medium risk of weather impact. So let's dive into some other games that we're going to be looking at here as well. We get out towards another portion of Florida. On the eastern side, there's Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Steelers, and they got a low risk of weather impact because we're looking at widespread storms that are possible, but it all looks like it's on the Gulf side. So when we look at Jacksonville Jaguar, they look like they're going to have a rain-free game. They do have some cloud cover that's going to be impacting this. Something else to watch for is a light breeze. If you're going to get your kickers out there, field goals that are really long in the preseason, you may try to adjust to see what kind of leg your kickers got. 50 to 55-yard field goals, they're going to be impacted, of course, by some of that light rain if it's present, but even more of that wind. Even if it's a low breeze, right? You're looking at 5 to 10 miles per hour. It's coming in off the Atlantic. It's actually refreshing if you're playing, but if you're kicking and you're kicking a long field goal, that may be the thing that stops you. Now, it's the first preseason game for both. It's not often that the star QBs actually play, but Aaron Rodgers says that he's all for it, and he's actually going to be prepped to try to play for the Steelers. I don't know if you've been seeing the offseason tapes. Rodgers, he's been looking old, so I don't know. Maybe he wants to play, but the coach may be saying, hey, Rodgers, we need to save the legs. We need to save the juice. We will wait later on in the season. So that's another game we'll be watching, a low risk of weather impact. Remember the different categories. You got 0, which we're saying weather's not going to be a factor. Low, there's still going to be some components to that we'll be watching for. And of course, again, that's going to be the wind, about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Let's take you to another low risk of weather impact game, and that takes us all the way up towards Green Bay. We were just talking about Aaron Rodgers, right? Well, now it's the Love Show. So we're getting up towards the Jets, towards the Green Bay Packers. It's going to be a 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern kickoff at Lambeau Field. And so what's it looking like for them? Well, they do have a chance of some of that rain leading up to the game. So it could be a little bit wet out there on the field in Lambeau initially. Again, I think this is a game that's going to be more impacted by the wind conditions. You're looking at 7 to 15 mile per hour winds that are possible. So again, that goes back into long kicks. That's going to be impacted, and long throws are going to be impacted as well. And so, again, it's difficult to see if these quarterbacks will actually be playing the starters. It's more about getting that rhythm and the reps for so many of these teams and their backups. So we're going to be talking about how not only is it the Green Bay Packers that are going to be taken out into the Jets and hosting them, but we'll be watching that for live betting. If you're really into it and you're betting preseason games, field goals that are 40 yards or greater, well, those are the ones that are going to be having the best opportunity if you're looking at right around 40 yards. If you're going 50 yards or greater, those are the ones that are going to be impacted by some of the wind conditions. So factor that in if you are going to be betting in on this game with the light wind impacts. All right, let's get into some more games. These have 0 risk of weather impacts, but we know we got fans everywhere, and we want to show your team some love. So we're going for the Browns out towards the Panthers. And let me ask you something, and be honest with me. Okay, because I've been looking at social media. I know you have too. Getting amped about the fact that we got football back in. But have you ever heard more talk about a third string, fourth string quarterback than what you have seen out of the Browns? I didn't know, and maybe this is just me, that we actually keep stats for their practice, like their reps and how many completions they had and how many touch. I'm learning it all this offseason because we have tracked every single move that Shedeur Sanders has been doing. I know he's not alone, but it just seems like it is shining. Now, he's the 5th round pick, of course, son of prime time, so there's going to be a lot of focus on it, but it's unsure if he'll actually play because they plan on keeping about 4 out of the 5 guys available. And right now, it's a toss-up of where he stands in their QB rotations. Now, the Browns defense, they are in full force. So when you're looking at the Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young, he's got a lot to prove. He did show some flashes towards the end of the season. I know there was a lot of heat for him early on in the season, and then he came back in, and he did well. So we'll be talking about how that could help him kind of gain some of that momentum, bring it back into the first game of the season. And then they got the rookie wide receiver, McMillan, who's been a bright spot in training camp and has a good connection with Bryce. So it's going to be all about syncing that up as well. So if you're live betting, this is a game where you have zero risk of weather impact. Sneaky bet there. Field goals, 50 yards or greater. It's not a bad one. I think a lot of people will be overlooking that. All right, let's get into another game. This is going to be the Commanders heading out towards the Patriots. That's going to be at Foxborough, 7:30 p.m. on Friday night. Zero risk of weather impact, looking good. Temperatures into the mid to lower 70s. Yeah, mostly clear skies and no complaints here. You're looking at a low chance of rain. The winds relatively light as well, 5 to 10. First preseason game, of course, for both teams. You got wide receiver Terry McLaurin for the Commanders. He wants out. So we got Deebo Samuel, who has been getting plenty of reps at the wide receiver number 1 spot. That's normally where you have McLaurin. So what's that connection like? Because, I mean, are you kidding me? When you look at what was happening out of the Commanders, I mean, if we're being honest, did everybody think they were going to be as good as they were? Jaden Daniels was electric. I mean, there was talk about him being MVP last year. That's how good it is. Now he's got Deebo in the locker room. If there was some way they could secure McLaurin, that would be awesome. But again, they need to build that connection as they come together for his second year. We'll start talking about future Hall of Famer Von Miller. He's also an all-pro defensive lineman, of course, and he's going to be traded for all-pro offensive lineman Laramie Tunzel. So a lot of movement there on the line as well. Patriots, they have made tons of moves as well. They got Stephon Diggs, and they got their former coach of the year, Mike Vrabel. He has now joined the Patriots, and a lot of people are excited about that hire. So let's see what he can get started, what kind of momentum, what's his legacy going to be like as the coach of the Patriots. Again, a live bet against 50, the field goals that are 50 yards or greater. This is a low risk, zero risk of weather impact. So long field goals could be a good one. I would say in preseason, though, a lot of times people will go for it on 4th down just because they want to get that extra rep. They want to see their teams out there on the field as much as possible. So we'll be watching that. That's NFL preseason where all the teams are finally getting out and getting some reps. And let's shift our focus now and get into the MLB and start talking a little bit of baseball as we get out towards what's going to happen on Saturday evening in St. Louis. The Cardinals, they're going to be hosting the Cubs. Look at the temperatures cooking right now into the lower 90s. What I'll tell you about this is when the temperatures are hot, the ball flies further. So home run watch right now. The rain chances are low, so that's a good impact. And notice the winds, they are low as well. If you're looking at where we're at in Busch Stadium, notice the white barbs that'll move over the screen right there. That's going to show you the trajectory of where the winds are coming out of. So it's almost a crosswind. So that may make it a little more difficult for those balls to fly out of the park. But again, the winds are relatively minimal, 5 to 10. So I think that's only going to impact if you're trying to do towering home runs. If you're pitching the ball, you got gas, it ain't going to be a problem. I don't think that's going to play any type of factor for the pitcher. So again, teams that we'll be watching, Cubs, they got a lot of momentum. They've been strong of late, 5-5 record out of the last 10. So can they keep that momentum? And then Cardinals, of course, this is home field advantage for them. And so they've been struggling on the road. Now they bring it back home. Hopefully they can secure a win. So this matchup does favor Chicago. So we'll be watching, of course, how this evolves for them on Saturday. Let's talk more about this. Is actually the Friday game of this one. And so looking at this, we were jumping ahead because of the risk of weather impact. This one ends up being low, but notice it's at the very beginning of the game. It's at first pitch. We have that low risk of weather impact. Then once you start to get into the third and fourth inning, it drops as the temperatures are quite warm. The wind still stays relatively light. So overall, for the big kind of series, best out of 3 games, you're looking at potentially we're going to be saying Cubs are favored in this one, likely to take it 2-1. We'll see. The opener is going to be on Friday night, so we'll be watching that. How does it round out? What's the last game like on Sunday? Here's your low risk of weather impact. It's the entire game that's under that at Busch Stadium. As we look at the warm conditions there, temperatures into the 90s, into the upper 80s throughout the second half of the game. And so the keys for the Cubs, and the reason why we're kind of leaning into them on being the favorite here, is they got a bullpen depth, right? So when you're talking about 3-game series, it's hot. You got Pete, Crow, Armstrong, and Morrell. Key for the Cardinals, though, can they leverage that home atmosphere? I think the Cardinals, they've been struggling on the road. They've been feeling good at home. There's a certain confidence, a certain swagger when you come back into Busch Stadium. So I think either way, it's going to be dynamite, and it'll be interesting to watch how the weather plays a factor in this one as well, as you're looking at the rain chances staying low. So it looks like you'll have plenty of sunshine throughout. It's just going to be the intense heat and a little bit of wind that plays a factor. All right, let's shift into a different gear here on the Fox Weather ROWI podcast. We are now going IndyCar. On Sunday, we're heading out towards the Grand Prix of Portland. That's in Portland, Oregon. Heading out to the Pacific Northwest. Sunday, midday Pacific Coast time, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're looking at a low risk of weather impact as we get into the start of the race. But what matters is the final laps, right? And that's where we have a low risk of weather impact. What we're seeing right now, precipitation 0, right? So not worried about rain for this one. What we do have is wind. That's going to be 5 to 10 miles per hour. So not big enough to impact these cars that are racing around, but the temperatures, you see how they're starting to climb, getting close to the lower 90s by 2 p.m. in this game, in this race, I should say. With that, plenty of sunshine, it heats up well on the track, getting over to 100 degrees. And so, it'll be relatively flat. We'll be watching that. The heat is what's leading to this low risk of weather impact for the second half of this race. Now, I told you, if you stuck around to the very end, we're going to have a different sport that we want to give a shout out to, and we're going to be heading out to Chicago for this one. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's LIV Golf. We're going to Bolingbrook, Illinois, Friday through Sunday, and for Friday, look at the feels like temperature, 101. If you're a golfer and you're walking around and it's cooking in that heat, that is going to lead to that medium risk of weather impact. Just the intensity and the suffocating nature of that intense heat. 101 feels like. On Saturday and Sunday, we dropped that down into the lower categories. Air temperature by Sunday, the final round, looking great into the mid-80s. But typically, whenever you see that kind of drop in temperatures, that will come with some wind impact. So something we'll be watching for is late Saturday or even early Sunday. The potential of the wind could start to pick up, and that could play a factor. But overall, low. They're pros as they go out towards Bolingbrook, Illinois. So great little first round of the for the preseason for NFL. Great to be able to get to talk to everybody here. This is the Fox Weather Risk of weather impact, the ROWI, and don't worry, you're not stuck with me all season long. We got a squad for you this year. We got Bob Van Dillen, Ian Oliver. All of us will be rotating in and talking to each other, bringing in the conversation, but of course, we want to hear from you as well. So get out on social media anytime you got questions, whatever the sport is, the outdoor activity, we would love to answer them for you. By the way, on any social media, I'm at Weather Bender for this week if you want to weigh in on, if you have any questions, if you are looking at fantasy kind of lineups and what you should choose. I know we're getting closer and closer to the draft for many leagues, and so this is something to watch for. And when you're seeing those reps getting done early in the preseason, how are the guys looking? I'd love to chat with you as well. So make sure you reach out. Until next week, have a good one, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week for preseason week 2 here on the Fox Weather ROWI podcast.